Welcome, Buffs fans. Holy crap. It's a gorgeous night here in Colorado. And if you aren't here in Colorado tonight, then you don't know what you're missing because it's about to get nasty on us starting late tomorrow night and going to kind of start off fall, I think, at that point, which is really cool because Sunday I've got a trip up into the mountains, which we usually do several times in the fall to get, fall foliage and stuff like that. And I may throw that down on Twitter. If you're not liked on Twitter for my Alpine Garage Sports channel, then do so if you want to see that kind of stuff. Otherwise, don't worry about it. But it's going to be a late night Saturday. I'll be there until probably, I don't know, game's probably going to end about 9:30. I'll be there until 10:30. I'm going to try to do a live outside the stadium tomorrow if I can pull it off. And then be back up at 6 a.m. the next morning, headed into the mountains, going up to about 12,500 feet. It's going to be snowing like crazy up at altitude tomorrow. But I'm going to be doing a drive called Boreas Pass, if you guys have never heard of it. But it's a pass that goes to Breckenridge, Colorado, and it's some of the best fall foliage this early in the season that you can see in Colorado. But it's also going to be snow, and they're predicting 10 inches up there on the pass. Of course, I've got a lot of four-wheel drive vehicles, so we're going to go and brave that and see if we can't trudge through it. And I'm going to shoot some video and see if I can't post that tomorrow. But regardless, the next 2 days for me are going to be like lights out. I'm just going to say they're going to be lights out. So if we are going to end up with a win at Baylor, and I'm just going to leak that out to you now. And then I'm going to go on a epic fall foliage / snow trudge trip on Sunday and then back to work on Monday. So that's kind of the way this is going to run. Let's see what we got here. Rob, the man media, is in here. Rob, I regret not getting with you literally or anybody else. I've been like, this is not my main gig. So I don't collaborate a lot, and I'm going to be collaborating a lot going forward. And I know you are near me, and tomorrow you're going to be at Folsom, I'm sure. So we got to connect somehow. We got to connect on this. Father of two, husband of one. So for those of you who are not on, man, what was that? Father, who was that we were on today? I can't even remember now. Dang, I cannot remember now. But anyway, father of two, husband of one, and I got a big kind of chat going on there, let's say, and it was really a lot of fun. So thanks for showing up tonight. And he says he is a fan of Rob's streams as well. And then, yeah, that's right, Harry B. That's where we were at. We were on Harry B tonight. Harry's got a good show. There's so many Buff shows now. When we first started back in December of 2022, I think it was me, it was DNVR, Harry, I think Chico was in there right around that time. And man, who else was there at that time? I don't remember who else was, if anybody else was in there at that time. Oh, yeah, of course. The most prolific of us all. Who is that? The one that has the most subs. I don't know why I can't remember anything tonight. But yeah, who is that? John the Liquidator. That's right. He was out there as well. So it was like probably 6 or 7 of us out there at the same time. And we were all bringing kind of the excitement of University of Colorado. And then shortly after that, Rob the Man showed up, and we had a lot of others that showed up, which is really awesome because I want to see as many people get into this as possible, bring you a bunch of different views, and give you a bunch of different content. And that's kind of the whole reason why this whole thing is here. Dennis says, I'm here at the Pearl Street Stampede. The energy is about half of last year. Very noticeable. Really, Dennis? That's awesome. Yeah. So obviously I'm not out there. I'm in my garage right now watching the Nebraska-Illinois game, which is tied 10-10. As you can probably see right above me here. 10-10 for the Nebraska game. So I couldn't miss that tonight. But you're right. I've been to the Stampede. I was at the Stampede earlier this year. and then obviously at the home game. And it really is different than last year, but only because of the fact that I think our outlook is the same, but the notoriety from the shows that are here is different. Last year I was at ESPN and Fox Big Noon Kickoff at like I got to the university at 2:00 in the morning each one of those days, and it was a crazy day. But because of that, it drew a lot more people. And I think I made a comment on one of my live streams here pretty recently that it was, I think, either the first game or the second game last year. I swear there was 100,000 people on that campus in my lifetime, and I've been going to the University of Boulder campus since 1978. I've never seen that many people on campus before, and it was over. I'm going to say it was overrun. Like it was just flat ridiculous how many people that were there. And although it was fun, it was a fun environment. There's just a lot of people there. I mean, they were everywhere, and not everybody had tickets to the game, obviously, but a lot of people wanted to be there for the notoriety and to see the shows in the morning because there were shows going on everywhere at campus, and it was a great atmosphere from that standpoint. And obviously, there wasn't a student in a dorm that day. There was not one student that wasn't on somewhere on campus that day. And I mean, that's 35,000 kids right there. So, you have an instant 35,000 people there. And this year is a little bit different. So, Dennis, I completely agree with you. Rob Demand Media says Colin Life and Football. Colin, that's right. Colin was there too. Colin was there too, right at the jump. So there was a few of us that were out there, and it's grown since then, and we've got some really good content coming from a lot of different social media outlets. And that's for those of you who are watching this show right now, that's kind of a preview of kind of what I wanted to. I'm not going to discuss it now. I'll discuss it on Monday. But in any case, there's a lot of social media coming at you for the University of Colorado. And being a Buff fan since a small child in the 70s, I would not shed one bit of notoriety for this school. This school is the greatest school in the land. And anybody who has not been here and walked the campus and talked to the students, seen Folsom, and been a part of what we do here, I suggest you come out, because it's not just that. You drive 15 minutes into the mountains and you're way up in the mountains. Like you can see everything that you may not have seen before if you're not from Colorado or from a mountain area, and experience things that you will never experience again in your life. And that's all right at the doorstep of Boulder. But I digress. Let's get into the Baylor game. So obviously this is our Big 12 opening, and I think, I say this, I don't say this in every game, but I've said this in the last two games. This is a must win for us. And the only reason why I say that is because I don't think that our schedule outside of maybe Cincinnati is really going to get that much lighter than it does right now at at Baylor. So, with Baylor, we have to win this game to show that we can compete with the other teams. And as we're progressing through the year so far, we are getting better and better and better. And our first half of Nebraska did not look good, but our second half of Nebraska looked great. And obviously CSU looked great. And a lot of people are discounting CSU, which I think is unfair at this point. But the whole point is that if we don't win this game against Baylor, then we're not going to win a game, I think, in the Big 12 play this year very easily. So we need to have this. It's super important. And when you look at Baylor right now, they're 2-1, we're 2-1, and they have questions at quarterback where we don't. And I think that, to me, right there just spells the difference. If you were to start with that and not go anywhere else, I think that you say that we win. And I think right now the line is like -2. But I think that we win by bigger than that, because just the quarterback alone, when we were playing Nebraska, Dylan Raiola was a big factor. And right above me here playing Illinois, Dylan Raiola is also a big factor. And it isn't because he's a better quarterback than Sheduer or he's a great quarterback or anything like that. It's just that they have a quarterback. They know who it is. They know how they play, and they're going to build their program around him. And right now, Baylor doesn't necessarily have that single quarterback. It looks like they're going into this game as a dual quarterback system, possibly. Starting would be quarterback Sawyer Robinson, who, I'm not going to slight because I'm not going to say he's not a great quarterback. Right now, his passing efficiency is 72.4. So he is on course with Sheduer and some of the top quarterbacks in the country. The problem is that he's only passed it, very little this year. They're primarily a running team this year. And so him not being so prolific in the passing game allows him to be, I say that his 72.4% passing proficiency, he doesn't have to have, 100 passes or 200 passes to prove that he's good. He's obviously a very accurate quarterback. And then you have DeQuan Finn, who is their overall starter, but was injured last week, which gave the start to Sawyer Robinson. Not as good a passer from an efficiency standpoint, but every bit as good a runner as we're going to face this year in the Big 12. And that's the scary part is sorry guys, I just ate dinner, so I'm a little bit exasperated from a voice standpoint, but if DeQuan Finn makes it into the game at any point, we have got our course. Our course is going to be vastly different than it is with Robinson, and the game could change significantly, and that scares me a little bit because we're not terribly great at running quarterbacks, and I say that I'm talking about this year only, okay, and I'm talking about the first game only because Dylan didn't run it that much. But we proved against NDSU that we can stop the run, and they had a really good running attack. We stopped them. Our defense looked really good, but when the quarterbacks got outside the tackles, we had a hard time bringing them down. We had a hard time bringing them down within 10, 12 yards, and we haven't had a game like that since. So now we have the ability to kind of cap that and say that's not an issue for us anymore if DeQuan Finn comes down. But again, he's probable. I don't know if he's going to play or not. If Sawyer Robinson plays, he's an accurate quarterback. He just hasn't thrown a lot. Let's go to the chat for just a second. CU Buff Dynasty. CU Buff Dynasty. Hey, what's up? We had he and Harry had a little bit of a showing today in Harry's live. And I just want to say, you Buffs Dynasty, it's really important when you have that multiple person live that you have going on, that you have somebody being the antithesis of what the overall statement is by the person that's running the YouTube channel. And you were that guy, and it made it super interesting. Like, I'm on lives all the time. I'm on lives with other channels more than I'm on live here. That gives you a big deal. I'm a fan of these channels. I'm a fan of the fans of those channels. I'm a fan of CU Buff Dynasty. I'm a fan of Father of Two, Husband of One. I'm a fan of all of you guys. That's why I do this. I don't do this for money. There is no money in this for me. It's primarily just to hang out and talk CU Buffs football. And it's more dynamic than a chat room. I do chat rooms too. Chat rooms are, to me, a little bit more stale. I love this environment a little bit better. Team JPC says Finn is awful, can't throw a rock into an ocean. Yeah. I mean, when you look at his efficiency, he's barely above 50, whereas Robinson's above 70. So I don't know that that's necessarily true when you're talking about a running quarterback, and that's what Finn is. Finn is, I'm not going to say he's primarily a running quarterback, but he's only had one game to really show what he had to do or what he had to give, actually. But looking at him, and where'd he come from? Toledo, I think. He was a very prolific running quarterback. Father Two Husband One says Baylor as a running QB. Baylor might see another NDSU program problem in option plays. I agree. And that could be a problem for our defense. And that's, the good news is that our defense is actually getting way better. Like every game, we're getting significantly better. But when you look at Baylor's is too. So when you're looking, actually, let's go back to Baylor's offense real quick. So I want you guys to keep an eye out for a guy by the name of Bryson Washington. He's not one of their most prolific backs. In fact, he's not even really a starter. But last week he came in for some injured players as a true freshman. So I kind of see this guy as like our version of Michael Welch. So everybody's really hot on Michael Welch. I'm hot on Michael Welch. He's beyond his years as a freshman, let's say. And so is this guy, Bryson Washington. He ran last week for 8.8 yards per carry and 106 yards as a freshman in his first game. So when you're talking about whether or not their O-line can actually block for this guy, I watched the tape. I actually have some tape saved. I'm not going to bring it to you today because it's going to take too long, but just trust me on this Bryson Washington guy. He's beyond his years as a freshman, and he can hurt us if he wants to. I'm hoping that they don't give him a lot of reps tomorrow and they go to their other running backs in the room, but it's a great running back room altogether. They average 4.0 yards per carry or better for each one of the runners. So there's not one main running back on their roster that has run for less than 4 yards per average carry. So that tells you how good they are. And, they haven't played the teams we've played, but they've played enough to show that they can do this. Yep. No other channels have mentioned Bryson. He came up huge last week. Well, thank you. Yeah. I mean, Bryson is like what I look for when I'm looking at tape is I say tape that ages me quite a bit. When I'm looking at video, I'm looking at who stands out that we may not, as a fan base, understand could hurt us. I know the coaches are looking at this and I know the players are looking at this, but what are the fans looking at? And, a lot of times we'll go on and we'll type in, Baylor Bears stats, let's say. It'll come up. I usually use Sports Reference. I'll go down and I'll look for anybody that has few games and a lot of yards when I'm looking at rushes, or a few games and a lot of receiving yards as a receiver, i.e., Omarion last year, where he really didn't play at all until a little bit like closer to the mid of the season, and then like that, bam, we turned him on and he turned up and it was huge, and he's still huge for us. So I'm looking for those players. I'm looking for the players that Baylor knows about, but they don't think we know about, and inserting them and, having their way with us. And I think that Bryson Washington is one of those guys. Baylor, this is a very well-known stat. I've seen it published in about 400 different places, but they've only passed it like 46 times this year. So, to say that they are tried and true in their passing game is wrong. They have been accurate in their passing game, which is fine, but they've only been passed on. What am I saying here? They've only been passed on 46 times. So their defense has not been tested. And even though they've done a pretty good job against the pass, I think they're ranked like number 1 or number 2 in FBS in passing defense. It's an aberration. It doesn't exist. It's fun to talk about if you're Baylor, but you haven't come across a team like Colorado with a quarterback like Sheduer and the 4 wideouts that are starting wideouts. You haven't seen that yet. So I am a firm believer in the fact that you hear me all the time say, run the damn ball, run it. But then I'm looking at Baylor and I'm thinking, okay, I get it. Baylor is really good against the run. That's all they've pretty much seen this year. So let's pass it. Probably, I'm not going to say a little bit more than we do because we already pass it more than I think we should. And I'm going to light some stuff on fire by saying that. But I'm not afraid of being pass heavy in this game. I'll just put it that way. I still think we should establish the run, but I'm getting ahead of myself. I'll talk about that in just a second. And then On defense, they've got Matt Jones and Keaton Thomas, both linebackers. Those are their number 1 and number 2 tacklers. And then the big guy, Jackie Marshall. You guys have probably, if you haven't heard that name, Jackie Marshall, you need to, because if we're going to be tested on the defensive line, or on our offensive line from their defensive line, it's going to be from number 0, Jackie Marshall. Watching the first 3 games, and I watched 2 of them in totality, and one of them just the kind of the breeze through. And he is the real deal. He is by far their best pass rusher. And like number 0 for Nebraska, Hutchmacher, this guy can get into Sheduer space pretty quick. So we need to be cognizant of that. So now let's get to CU's offense. CU's offense, and the reason why I get to CU's offense is because I'm just going to pass up CU's defense altogether. I'm not even going to talk about it. And the reason why is, if, as a fan talking about CU's defense, I probably wouldn't change anything from the last game and a half. I think that we have started the right people. I think they're in the right rotation. I think they're doing the right things. And I think that this set, what we're doing against Baylor, I think that we can hold them to 10 points or less. So I've already predicted that Baylor's not going to score more than 10 points. And that's where we're at with that. I really like what Livingston is doing. I think that he is, at least through game 3, the right guy for the job. And I'm really super excited to see, just in 6 quarters, how much better we're doing as a defense. We get through Baylor. Baylor's not going to be, I hear a lot of people saying Baylor is going to be a little bit of a tougher team than we think. I personally don't think that. I don't think they're going to be probably as easy as NDSU, but they're going to be a lot easier than a lot of the other folks that we have coming up. And if we can handle them with our defense, I think we're going to be fine going through the rest of the year. I don't think we're going to win every game. I think there's still another 4 games that we're going to lose, or at least I think 4 games that we have the propensity to lose based on what we look like right now. If we change a little bit on our offense, that could change things. And here we go. All right. So this is going to look a lot different than what you guys have seen before. This is what you've seen before for me, and my keys don't change. So if you're, I was a coach for a while, not, nothing crazy, right? But enough to be able to take some time to learn offense, defense, that kind of thing. Plus I play football, obviously. But when I'm looking at CU, I'm looking at old school football. And that's where I come from. I come from old school football, Colorado, Oklahoma. Those were my 2 teams growing up. And CU is my number 1 team. OU was OU. I loved OU. And both of them at the same time were really good, pretty much at the same time, or I should say growing right at the same time. Both of them were on the wishbone offense. We're never going to run that. I get it. Triple options dead. But the run really started carrying my heart. And when I coached football, I coached run first, pass second. Obviously, this is with youth, so it's a lot easier to do that with youth. So that's just where my head is. And the whole reason why is because in football, my primary objective as a coach would be to control the clock. The clock is your biggest adversary. If there's time left on the clock and you give it to the other offense, they have the opportunity to score on you. If there's no time on the clock, you're not giving it to the other defense or the other offense, and you win the game. It's a very simple process, actually. The more time you own the clock, the less time they get to do whatever they're going to do to you. And if they have a prolific offense, or if they just have your number that day, if they're changing their schemes, if they're throwing you things you haven't seen before or prepared before, or they bring in personnel that you have not seen or prepared for before, but you own the time of possession and you are as good as we are, then at this point, we win the game. And that's what I'm talking about with Sheduer. And I get a lot of heat. I will tell you this. I get a lot of heat. And thank you, RadZX10 Daddy, for that $2 super chat. Yeah, by the way, you're going to have to send me a picture of that ZX10 that you're talking about, alpinegaragesports@gmail.com. I want to see that ZX10. For those of you who don't know what we're talking about, I'm also a motorcycle guy. The reason why you see garage in the title of my show is because I'm looking at two Broncos that I'm restoring at the same time, a 83 Wagoneer that I'm restoring, and about 12 motorcycles that I'm restoring. And that's kind of what we do on the side is fun. And so to see that ZX10 in there is actually kind of funny. So I appreciate that super chat. Thank you very much there. But time of possession, it's easy for me when we have an offense like we do, and we have Sheduer as a quarterback, and they know at any point, and we know at any point, that we could absolutely light them up in the secondary and score pretty much limitless. As a coach, I'm not interested in 65 points, 55 points. I'm interested in holding onto the ball, scoring. Okay. And in this last game against CSU, we had multiple drives that were longer than 5.5 minutes. And that's what we're going to have to do in order to beat these really good teams. Now, I don't know that we need to do that to win against Baylor, but why not practice that against Baylor? And so my number one key to the game is 35 minutes time of possession. The first two games, we had 21 minutes, 21 and a half minutes of time of possession. The other team had 30-something minutes. Now, I know we won against NDSU. They had 38 minutes of time of possession. I understand that. It's NDSU. I'm not interested in talking about that. I'm talking about Utah. I'm talking about Kansas State. I'm talking about the teams that understand this process and have the talent to be able to backfill like we're talking about with the 38 minutes that they have. If we have it for 38 minutes, we don't have to fast strike it for a touchdown and then give it to another team. Because at some point, we're going to get into a battle where it's fast strike touchdown, fast strike touchdown. We end up punting. They get it back, fast strike touchdown. All of a sudden, we're behind. Fast strike touchdown, fast strike touchdown. We punt it again. Fast strike touchdown. Now we're behind by 2 scores. We can just keep doing that all day long. But if we hold the ball from them, basic fundamental of football, and we score, it gives them less time to do the same thing. Now, if we both hold the ball, which it seems like Baylor is prone to doing, there's not going to be a lot of series in this game. Let's put it that way. And those can be grind to a halt football games and come down to who has the football last, which is cool because if Sheduer has the football last, we're going to win this game. So either way I see it, I think that is a great number one thing to do. And I'm going to beat time of possession into the freaking ground, guys, because we will not win against some of these better teams with 21 minutes time of possession. We just won't do that. They will absolutely freaking kill us if we give them the ball that much. So I'm going to take a break here for a second because I'm getting kind of excited. Let's see. King John says the triple option is not dead. It's actually a pretty good plan. They just don't run it in high school. So it becomes they just don't run it in high school, so it becomes a new concept in college. So service schools run the triple option, and they're deadly with it. They just don't play a lot of FBS teams to be able to kind of show that off. But the triple option to me is very similar to the air raid offenses of the early 2000s, which is when you become one-dimensional like that, and people don't prepare for you, you can win. When you become one-dimensional like that, and teams can prepare for you, then you lose a lot. And that's exactly what happened. That's the reason why the triple option died with service schools, or died and just basically predominantly with service schools. And that's the reason why you don't see the traditional air raid offense anymore, is because it's very easy to defeat those offenses when you're one-dimensional. And that's the reason why I keep bringing up point number 2, which is coming up here in just a second. Let's look at a couple more. King John says, I wish Colorado would run the triple option. Man, if we just ran it like, I don't know, 3 times during a game, I would be really happy, but I wouldn't want to run it the whole game. Unless we're just going to do it for one game and people, like if we did it now, okay, this is just dreamland. If we did it now, we would absolutely cream Baylor 72-0, because there is no way they would ever have the ball and we would have the ball altogether. But the next game, everybody would figure it out and we would lose every game after that. So It's fun to dream. We're not going to do that, so might as well not. QB1 is just too good to run. I agree. He is too good to run the triple option. We wouldn't want to put Sheduer in that capacity. And also, honestly, Sheduer's not that quarterback. Sheduer can't run the triple option. He's too big. He's not fast enough. And even if he could do it, we wouldn't want to do it anyway, so it doesn't matter. Nebraska kept 2 off the field for sure and helped them win. True. Roberto says, I hope they're expecting that QB T0 run. If they can contain that, we can be off the field. I agree. Father of 2, husband of 1 says Prime keeps putting our defense in bad positions, bad coaching. So this is where Father of 2, husband of 1, we got into a little debate. I'm going to call it a debate earlier on another live. And Father of 2, husband of 1, I think we are on the same page. I really do. I think we're on the same page. We see it we talk about it in different ways, but I think we see it in the same way. I don't think that Coach Prime is intentionally putting our defense out there for 38 minutes a game, just leaving them in the wind. I think it's just the way our offense is built. It's built to be, and I'm not going to say it's a spread offense, but it's meant to strike quick with Sheduer. And with as good as our receivers are, if the defense isn't prepared for that, we just score. I mean, we get the ball. These guys are good after the catch. They're good through the first tackle, and we end up scoring. And it's just the way it is. But I don't think we have to score that quick. But I agree with. I'm sorry, I agree with you on that. Roberto says, "Well, at least NDSU got us aware that we adjusted and hope." That's true. I think it did. That was a very good first game for us. I think that did a lot. Livingston is great at adjustments, and I think he used that game to our advantage. Baylor is a very good team. Don't sleep on their defense. Cindy, I agree. I mean, they wouldn't be an FBS team, and they wouldn't be Baylor. They wouldn't be 2-1 if they weren't a good defensive team. What I'm saying is that they haven't been tested in the way that they're going to be tested this week. They've been tested in the run. They've been good in the run. They've been tested slightly in the pass, and they've been good in the pass. So now they're going to get tested in the pass pretty heavily. And if they can withstand Sheduer's onslaught with Travis and with everybody else, then, I think Wester's going to have a big game. I think Shepard's going to have a big game. And I think my favorite receiver, let's take Travis out of this conversation because Travis is everybody's favorite on everything. And he is on mine too. But Horn is probably my favorite receiver on Colorado, with the exception of Travis. And the reason why is because you don't expect the things you see from him. And he shows up every day in every game, and he gives you something to say, why isn't Horn our number 1 receiver? So that's all I'm saying. I mean, Wester's prolific, Shepard's huge, but Horn gets it done. So that's what I'm going to say. Roberto says, bet Baylor will try to throw the kitchen sink at us. If they think they're going to stay in there, they're prone to the same offense we are. If you watch them, they're in 10 formation or 10 personnel almost every single play. And they run out of that formation a lot. And my brain explodes when we run out of 10 personnel because I don't think there's enough blockers up front. I don't think it's an intentional running formation. But these teams are running it and they run the same thing. So I think they're going to throw some wrinkles in there and they're going to try to see if they can get us sleeping. I think our D line is just too good for this right now. I want to say a different scheme. Give us a triple option. Man, you guys are throwing out the triple option a lot. I threw out the triple option last year as a joke. Okay. As a joke, I threw it out there and I got absolutely roasted by everybody in the chat saying that there's no way that Sheduer is going to run the triple option. And I 100% agree with that statement. It was a joke. It wasn't a big deal. But boy, I tell you what, you want to set something on fire. Talk about triple option with Sheduer in the as quarterback. I don't think Coach Prime calls plays either. Do you think that could be an issue? All great coaches seem to call the plays. What do you think? Um, I think it depends on the skill set of your head coach. So there are a lot of head coaches that have that ability, I guess, to call plays as a head coach. It's a control issue, I think, a little bit there. But also, a lot of the coaches that are calling plays were either an offensive or defensive coordinator. Most of them were offensive coordinators, the ones that are actually calling the plays. And so, what they're doing is they're basically collaborating with the offensive coordinator or the defensive coordinator, and then they're calling in the plays from that standpoint. So you almost have kind of a doubled effect of that. Coach Prime is not that guy. He was never an OC or DC for a major program, at least. Obviously, he coached at multiple levels, but I think he trusts his coaches. He gives them the power to do it. And as soon as he sees something's not working, it seems to me like he would have or take the ability to like insert himself into that and say, hey, we need to switch to plan B or plan C or whatever it is. Last year, we didn't see that a lot, but this year, I think we're seeing a little bit more. And I think our coordinators are better this year, so maybe we're not seeing as much as we're going to see it in the future. Stephanie says, okay, guys, teach me, what is a triple option? So Stephanie is an OG subscriber to this channel. Stephanie, thank you very much for being here. So the triple option is essentially you've got two running backs and and you have one quarterback, obviously. Sometimes you can see it as a wishbone, which is three running backs and a quarterback, which is basically four runners at that point. And the quarterback, when the quarterback hikes the ball, they're typically under center. And then they have the option of handing it off to the running back on their left, the running back on their right, or running the play themselves. They also have the option to run to the right or the left, hold on to the ball, get to the corner, and decide whether or not to pitch it to their outside running back or hold on to it themselves for the run. So the triple option is a running-based offense. It's exactly the opposite of what we run here. And, they'll run it 70% of the time, pass it 30% of the time. And typically the only time you ever see passes is when they stuff the run and they have to pass. Otherwise, triple option teams will run it 95% of the time if they can. We are not, obviously, Sheduer is not going to be a triple option quarterback. He's not going to be a quarterback that's going to expose himself to hits. I don't know that any team, if he were to pull that out, would ever trail him. Like, I don't think they would give him the opportunity. They wouldn't even think that he would keep the ball. So it wouldn't be anything that we'd be able to pull off. You need a dual threat quarterback to be able to pull that off. And dual threat, I would even say, isn't even that much. You need a running quarterback to pull that off. So that's what the triple option is, Stephanie. It's kind of a dead thing. You don't see it a lot anymore. And but it was fun to watch. If you watch the national championship game, just picking one game, right? Colorado versus Miami in 1991, which was the 1990 season. That game was played in January of 1991. You'll see the triple option. If you watch any game for Colorado before 92, it's versions of the triple option. It's the eye bone, the wishbone, the wing bone. There's all kinds of bones out there, which is basically very similar to the triple option. All right, that's enough on triple option. Need to run the wishbone. Man, you guys, where'd you shoot? And Kyle's showing up here. You guys are now showing up supporting me on this whole option thing. We're not an option team. I love you. I love you. I would love to see that again, but it's not going to happen. Father to husband one. I don't agree with you on that. In the past two games, Primus forced us to pass when he didn't need to. Nebraska, he got scared of the run past the ball. In CSU game, he continued with the pass when, I'm assuming he meant when we were ahead. I don't know if you're talking to me, father of two, because I didn't say that. Prime is always focused on the pass. I will never say anything different than that. That Prime's offense is at passing a spread offense. I saw that play in Nebraska. No, I don't think we saw very much. No, we didn't see very much triple option in that. Dylan Rowell is really not that much of a running QB, but there will be probably some teams in the future, especially if we see DeQuan Finn in there. You might see a little bit of that, but I don't think so. It's kind of, Stephanie, it's kind of as much as I love it, it's just not a practical offense anymore for really high end quarterbacks because they get hurt a lot in that offense. Let's see. King John says the triple option also requires a certain type of footwork too. That first step, that is important. It's like a dance. You're right. Yeah. You got to be able to sell it every single play. And if you don't, then it's a problem. Probably the best triple option play in my lifetime was the Darian Hagan against Nebraska in 1989. And this is when, we were just flying high and everybody just started to really kind of get their eyes on CU. And he was running around the left side. And you guys have probably seen this. If you haven't, you need to go look it up. CU versus Nebraska, 1989. Darian Hagan, JJ Flanagan. And they both run to the left. You can see JJ trailing him as the option back. But Darian decides to hang on to it, runs basically through the first set of the first line of players, gets to the linebackers, pitches it to the left to JJ Flanagan. JJ Flanagan takes it in the end zone. And from that moment right there, from that absolute moment through the rest of 1989, we were the team to beat for the entire year. And as far as I'm concerned, it was an aberration that we didn't win the national title at 89. And I'm just going to say that. So that will be the last thing I talk about the triple option. I promise, guys. He didn't need to. Prime is an emotional coach, and Welch, he will lose at one point. Sylvia Blue says, this will be a great game. I'm excited. I agree. Wishbone with the tight end, running back, wide receiver in the backfield. Yeah. I mean, literally anything different than what we're doing right now, I think would be a benefit. And I'm going to get roasted on that comment, but what I want to say about that is this, is that if I agree, Sheduer is the quarterback of quarterbacks. We have a wide receiver room that is undoubtedly one of the best in college football. Why would we do anything other than throw it to them? And the reason why is because we tried to do that last year and we proved that defenses can figure that out. So you throw in the tight end, you throw in the running back, you throw in the running game, you throw in the tight end. Last year in the first 3 games, for those of you who haven't watched this channel, I'm going to say this until we get it right. In the first 3 games last year, we won the first 3 games. And all 3 games, we had Michael Harrison, who was not a tight end, who became a tight end because we made him a tight end, because we didn't like any of our other tight ends. And the only good one we had was Hurt and Passarello. We made him a tight end. Okay. At first, everybody was like, he is way too small to be a tight end. He cannot block. Okay. Well, he did a pretty decent job at doing that. But the reason why he moved to tight end is because that gave another wrinkle for the defense to have to figure out, because he would pop off of that defensive line, come in for a dig route, and bam, you hit him and he's gone for a touchdown. He actually won the CSU game for us, if you don't remember that last year, in double overtime. In single overtime, caught the ball, took us to double overtime, caught the ball, won the game. So you have to understand the tight end is really important. Even if the tight end isn't a world beater tight end, like Michael Harrison was not a world beater. Okay. He's not in the NFL that I know of as a tight end right now. Right. He's still playing for another team. And I don't even remember who it is, Arkansas or something like that. But he's not prolific is what I'm saying. It's just that position is that important. And players that aren't world beater players. They're not the best 5-star athlete coming out of high school that come in as tight end, become not first round draft picks, but high round draft picks in the NFL because they were able to understand that tight end position and they could make their team successful by filling that role. And that's all I'm going to say about the tight end. I'm sorry, VHF. I'm sorry, I didn't answer your question. What type of defense does Baylor have? I've seen them in cover 2 almost all the time. So I don't look as much at their defense as I do at their offense because I really, there are a lot of people that are high on their defense. I'm not as high as anyone else is on their defense. I'll just say that right now. I don't think it's been tested. Their run offense is good, but even their run offense is being run against teams that aren't that great at running teams. Air Force is a great running team. Don't get me wrong. I can go to my back porch right now and I look down into Falcon Stadium to kind of give you an idea. I've been to a lot of Falcon games, and the Falcons are a great running team. This year, something's off. I don't know what the deal is, but they're just not the same team they were in the past. They're world beaters, and they would have beat Baylor in any other year than this year. I'm just going to say that right now. Let's see. Do you think CU and the QB for next year? Do you think CU has the QB for next year currently on the team? Woo! That's the first time I've ever heard that, King John. I don't know, guys. Throw it up there in the comments. What do you think of King John's question? That is the question of the day, King John. That is awesome. Do I think we have the quarterback of the future on our team? I'm going to say yes. I'm going to say yes. And here's the reason why. Because a balanced team doesn't need the best 5-star quarterback on their team. They don't. Look at some of the teams last year in that top 5. I keep bringing this up. They're not quarterback centric. And what I mean by that is they're not passing centric. They are quarterback centric, but the quarterback is the manager of the game for those teams. They can pass the ball when they need to pass it, and they can run the ball when they need to run it. They can run the offense that the offensive coordinator gives them. And if they're running RPOs, they're pretty smart in that. I think they are on our team. I think that I'm not going to say who it is though, because they're going up and down and up and down and up and down. And it's really interesting because Ryan Staub, I'm really big on Ryan Staub. And there's a lot of reasons. I don't think Ryan Staub is the most prolific quarterback out there. I think he is a smart guy and he's good at managing the game. I like that in a quarterback, and I would take that in a balanced offense over a 5-star coming in here and us running the same offense we're running last year. I'm going to stop myself. Last year, where we're throwing all the time, I would rather have that quarterback that can manage a game. Okay. Now, Sheduer I'm not saying this year because Sheduer is different to me. I don't think there's another Sheduer out there. I don't think there's another Sheduer out there right now. And I think that he is special. But I do like the fact that we do have somebody on our team. And I'm not going to say necessarily that it's just Ryan Staub. Dominique Ponder is an interesting guy. You guys haven't seen much of him. I saw more of him during the live practice or the open practice, I guess you should say, than you guys may have actually seen. But Dominique, he intrigues me. I really like that quarterback. And the thing I like about it is that he is a threat for the run. And I think the reason why I like that is because it's so vastly different than Sheduer that it complements it, I think. And if we had Dominique on specific plays on offense right now, I would not cry. I would not yell or scream, because if we're giving Sheduer a break and we're trying to use a running quarterback I'm going to say option quarterback. I said option again. I said I wouldn't say that. And give a little bit of a different look to our offense and really freak out the other teams, That would be a good thing. We're talking about change right now. A lot of people are talking about change. So why not, right? Why not? And then you have Destin Wade. Destin Wade looked good in the open practice. And then Walter Taylor III, who is the biggest man at quarterback I have ever seen in my life. He looked bigger than anybody on the field during the open practice. Um, he looked okay during that practice. He didn't get a lot of reps, but good grief, dude. If you give him some time, he's going to be a freaking monster. So yeah, do I think we can run with one of those four guys on our offense? Absolutely. Would I stand behind any one of those four guys if Coach Prime said, "Hey, Destin Wade is our quarterback, or Dominique Ponder is our quarterback, or Walter Taylor is our quarterback, or Ryan Staub, who is our number 2 right now, is our quarterback"? I'd be like, let's go. Let's go. Because look at our running back crew. I'm not afraid. We got great wide receivers. We got great running backs. In my opinion, we have great tight ends that haven't been proven yet. I don't need a great quarterback. I need a good quarterback that's accurate and understands how to read defenses and can run an RPO right, and an offensive coordinator that understands the difference between designated running plays or how to designate a running play, which I think we have. So I think we're good. I'm good. So do we have King John? That was a long explanation for your question, but yes, I'm glad you said that too, because I hadn't thought about that. I'm going to roll through these really quick. Chris, one must do have an offense, and then on defense. Do you think weather will play a factor in this game? No, I don't. And I'm a weather guy. I was a meteorologist in college for a while, and I 100% believe that a wet field and a wet ball that isn't practiced wet could change the game. But I'm also a guy that says that anything that happens to both teams is kind of a non-negotiable. It just gets thrown out. I mean, I don't really think Baylor's going to have to deal with it too. I don't know that they played in the rain a lot. But when you play in the rain at altitude and it's cold, I can tell you that training at altitude my whole life practically was always in the cold. So I was an alpine racer. I played football, but I was an alpine racer. And so we trained in the cold all the time. I mean, it was running uphill in ski boots and stuff like that. And I can tell you that the cold, the dry air and the cold has a lot to do with how you, not only how you convert oxygen, but also how the water in your body, if you're not hydrated enough. And I can tell you, these players from Baylor or anybody that comes here and plays, their coaches could say that they're hydrated enough, but you can't hydrate enough for this altitude. Like, you need to drink so much that you're peeing every 5 minutes. And before a football game, a lot of people are afraid to do that. So, so that's where I think they get into trouble. So I'm just going to say that. Stephanie says, great question. VHF says, I was asking about the defensive line. I'm sorry, VHF. I didn't know what you're talking about. Yeah. I think defensive line. Okay. I see what you're saying. I want to say I've seen them play like a 4-2, a 4-2-5, something like that. They always seem to have 4 up front. If they ran a 3-man front, I think we just run the hell out of them. I don't think they're going to do that. I like the 5 QBs, which is why I'm asking. I got it. Ponder, Walt, Staub, and Wade. King John says, Daryl says, see a great individual talent, but the first year as a team trying to put it all together. True. That we have a lot of individual talent, and there isn't a single position that I can think that we're weak in. And that's what I like about this. But Daryl has a great point. This comes down to us being able to play together. And it also comes down to the game plan. It comes down to coaches being able to use this talent to complement each other and not just have one person or 2 people, either on the offense or the defense, take the entire load and try to win the game. That's where we get into trouble and it becomes a problem. I haven't really seen it as much this year, which is really great. And I'm hoping this will carry on through this game. But let me finish my game. So I talked about, or let me finish my keys. So I talked about time of possession. Time of possession is key. I think the wrinkles that we're going to put in offense are going to be key too. I am afraid that we are going to understand the fact that Baylor is weak on their passing defense, or at least I should say not weak. I'm sorry, untested on their passing defense. So we're going to be pass heavy again this game, and we can win this game in the pass. I do not have a doubt on that. If we won the game and Sheduer ended up with 42 passes for 450 yards, I wouldn't be pissed, but I would be disappointed. And the reason why I'd be disappointed is at some point we are going to be playing these teams that we are not going to be able to do that against. And I'm afraid we're not practicing it as much as I would think that we would be practicing it. And I called that out in the last live before the last game, which is, if you looked at, we ran a bunch of running plays on the screen and I showed you guys what it looks like. It looked like we were in passing defense or passing offense, right? In an RPO trying to run the ball, meaning that the defensive line was penetrating the offensive line maybe 2 yards deep before the ball was handed off. And that told me at that point that I didn't care if it was Charlie Offerdahl or not. If it was anybody, we wouldn't be gaining the yards that we need to get a first down. In the second game, we changed that. And we started to have more specifically designed running plays. And when we did, the offensive line outside of the first series, because the first series was terrible. Like we could not run block to save our life in that first series against CSU. But after that, we looked really good. Like they figured it out. They were really getting physical with the defensive tackles, and we really took control of that game. And I'd really like to see that now. The third key to the game for me is tight ends. Tight ends. I want to see 11, 12 personnel. 12 might be pushing it. I know I'm getting crazy, right? 11 personnel. We need to have one tight end in there. If it's Savell Smalls, great. I love Savell Smalls, right? If it is Sam Hart, love Sam Hart. Put Sam Hart in there. If it is Morgan Pearson, put Morgan Pearson in there. Guys, you guys have not heard Morgan Pearson a lot. His name. I said it a lot early last year before we didn't see him a whole lot. This dude is a freaking stud. And he was a studded edge. They changed him over to a tight end. And I'm telling you guys, if you released Morgan Pearson out there and we did something crazy and did a 13 personnel, which is 1 running back and 3 tight ends, I would say that we would absolutely freaking light it on fire. Baylor's heads would explode. Their defensive coordinators would be running up and down the sidelines trying to figure out what is going on. And I think that we could be successful doing that. We will not do that. It's more of a joke than anything because we will not do that. We have too many good wide receivers on our team to replace them with tight ends that are unproven. But I'm just saying our tight ends, I believe our tight ends are that good. And I also believe that if we had a formation that allowed for multiple tight ends in the set, that we could absolutely grind the ball out in 5 to 8 yards per plays. Keep the ball between 5 and 7 minutes a series. And if we do that, we take the ball away from Baylor. Baylor's defense gets absolutely exhausted and worn out to where they're having to sub their crappy players in for their good players, because at altitude, they're going to get smoked fast. Their starting line is going to get smoked fast. Our key is that we need to let it grind at altitude and get those top players, that defensive front, those defensive backs, get them winded, get them out of there, let them sub with their second team players. Sheduer is going to end up with 350 to 400 yards in this game, even if we have 30 running plays. It's going to be that type of a game. I am not at all worried about Baylor's defense, not even for a second, not for a minute. And I'm saying that not because they're not good, but because I am hoping that our coaches, and I'm putting my faith in Robert Livingston, and I'm putting my faith in Pat Shermer, and I'm putting my faith in Coach Prime, and I'm putting my faith in Sheduer Sanders, that they know the altitude is our friend. Baylor's not going to be ready for it. We are going to absolutely decimate them by continuing to keep the clock on our side. And we're going to run them flat down to where in the third quarter, it's going to be like playing against a JV team. And we can put up 20 points in the fourth quarter if we want to, if we do this. I feel very certain about this. Now, if we were going to play at Baylor, it's a different conversation. Totally different conversation. We are not. We are playing in Folsom. Altitude is our friend. The weather, the rain, the nastiness is our friend. I think we can manage this. The coaches just need to have the game plan right in order to do this, and I believe that they will. What else do you have to say, guys, before we get going here? I don't like to keep my lives very long because you guys have lives that you need to go live. Matthew says, in the last game, Sheduer changed some of the pass plays to run plays. We are supposed to pass the ball more. Probably. And if I don't remember seeing a lot of RPOs that went to the run side. I saw a lot of run design plays, but if that is the case, let's say I just totally missed on that, then good. I would rather see him opt for a run play when it isn't evident that there's an open pass right away than to wait too long for that pass to develop and get sacked or throw an errant ball, is what I'm going to say. VHF says, what is 11 personnel versus 10? So 10 personnel is, so the first number is the running backs. So if it's 10 personnel, it's one running back, 0 tight ends. If it's 11 personnel, it's one running back, 1 tight end. And when you see that tight end can be static. That tight end can be in motion. I like tight ends in motion because any kind of motion helps the quarterback try to figure out where the defense is going to go. And I like having a tight end in motion versus a running back in motion, because a running back in motion, especially if it's, let's say, Jimmy Horn. Jimmy Horn's a $185. Jimmy Horn's not taking on an edge. He's not taking up a 200-pound cornerback going at full speed coming at Sheduer, whereas a tight end can. And that's the difference. Is if you're putting a receiver in motion, my expectation is that you're going to use that receiver in a screen, or you're going to use that receiver in the flat or something like that. But if you're running the ball and you have a receiver in motion, I don't know. To me, that's a wasted man. So that's the reason why I say that. So that's 11 personnel. Baylor is in Texas, which is at sea level. They will 100% be winded. That's true. I think specifically Baylor is at 600 feet, which is, might as well say they're at sea level. So that's it. All right, guys, what other things do you have for me tonight? Anybody else have anything? Throw them up there in the comments. I really appreciate all of the good comments tonight. Tomorrow's schedule. So I'm probably going to go live sometime between 10 and 11 in the morning, Colorado time, Mountain Standard. And then I'll be at CU for a long time tomorrow. We're going to go and eat, and then we hang out, we see friends, we do those things, we go to tailgates. And then I will go live probably between 4 and 4:30 for the Buff Walk. And that is when the Buff players go, when they arrive in the buses and they go to the IPF to get dressed and get onto the field. We'll see them come through. And then I'll probably go live again when I get into the stadium. And then I'll go live again after we're done at the end of the game. I'm probably going to try to go live outside of Folsom if I can, so I can get you guys before I go home. And then that will be it for that day. So you'll probably get 3 lives out of me tomorrow, and I'll do my best to get as much as I can out for you. That is a wrap from Alpine Garage Sports. Thanks for hanging out on this live. Please subscribe if you already haven't, and we'll see you next video. We'll see you tomorrow.